Okay, noise suppression's on. Welcome to What the Heck. This is What the Heck. And we have Ising and me, Hex
Yeah,
Up,
we do indeed.
where we just make mouth sounds for an hour and a
For an
half.
hour and a half. Gonna enjoy
Fully
that.
enjoy. Um, no, we're gonna talk about something more fun. Unless you're Robbie, hybrid setups.
Yeah, shall we do introductions
But
first? Just
yeah, let's
because
do
nobody knows who we
introductions.
are?
Yeah, yeah. Who are you and what oh yeah, I wrote down. What BPM do you start at typically?
Yeah, I'm Ising. I'm a random person from the street. Just walked in here 5 minutes ago. I usually start around below 120 because I
Oh,
feel once I reach 120, I'm in techno territory and it's going to be that kind of patch. So I, I, I usually I usually end up at exactly 120, or and then I go back to 170 just not to be 120. Things that doesn't matter, but here we are.
yeah. I'm Hex Seven, one of the hosts of this show, and I make music. I don't know. Let's talk about BPM. I typically start at around 137 because I think it's a cool number. But more importantly, it's right in between sort of the directions I like to go. Like around 140-ish is like fast-ish techno,
Mm.
120-ish like really easy for me once I get like a sequence in to figure out where I fit. Or I can crank it up to around 160 typically. And when I do that, it sort of loops back around to almost 80 BPM, right?
Yeah,
And sort of how I sequence it, like that, like 160 stuff is kind of fun because you can go like insanely fast while still hearing like note clarity and all of that.
mm.
And then you can do breakdowns that are just really slow or really cool uh, sequences. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know if that's technically 80 or 160, but
doesn't
yeah.
matter.
So
It's divisions as well, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
all just math stuff. Hey, Iganopolis and Forestine, thanks for joining.
Do you
We're
have do you own a pocket operator, or are you familiar with them?
I am, and I have three.
Nice. I have two of them. I love their BPM setting. It's like, do you want to do hip hop? Do you want to do house? Or do you want to do techno? That's your options.
Yeah, and specifically on some of them, it's not even techno; it's tensho, which is how I write it most of the time because of that.
I
And
didn't
I
know that.
think I'm trying to remember. I think it was like the PO33 or something, where like the artwork was done by like one of the kids of them. Like it's, I don't know. They're great. They have so much flavor in those things.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
they very well define tensho.
Tempo, yeah.
Yeah, hip hop is too fast. I think Schmooster will agree with you, Forestine. I think Schmooster. I asked this question the other day in the Discord, in the Earth Modular Society Discord, and Schmooster was like 7 BPM, and I was like,
7 BPM. Oh,
all
that's
right,
that's ambient territory.
yeah. That's what's the guy's name? Hold on. The 4 minutes and 33 seconds guy.
John
John
Cage.
Cage, yeah, that's like
Yeah.
John Cage territory because John Cage also has that song that no one will ever hear in a single lifetime because it's over
Right.
like 100 something years, or I don't remember how
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah, that's a statement.
Yeah, so so Schmooster and John Cage are on the same page there. But I also
It's
think Schmooster, uh, your setup a little different because you've got like quite an array of things happening, probably some clock dividers and multipliers. So there's lots happening there.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, and it's kind of. I mean, with clock dividers in the picture, the BPM isn't as fixed of an entity as it is in like sheet music, for example.
yeah, yeah, and like I mean, it sort of is. Like if you're a listener and you've been classically trained and went to music school, like you can break it down into like very rigid stuff. Like I
Mm.
think I saw someone talking about there's like I think in a Twitter or Instagram account or something that will go in and like break down and write sheet music of like water dripping from a faucet or like nature sounds or like things
Right.
like that, but like to a very specific degree, which is insane.
Yes.
If I read sheet music, I would follow that, but I know the gist. I don't. That's about it.
Right. Right.
What's up, Kyle? Yeah,
Kyle.
we're gonna get into some hybrid
Yeah.
discussion, which I did not bring up, even though that's like my jam.
Uh, I think it's something I've been thinking about for quite a long time. It's I have several angles into that discussion. One of them is that I don't feel that I can fit everything I want into the space constraints I have in Eurorack. That's gonna be both an expensive and a sort of expansive endeavor as at the same time, and especially when it comes to things like uh, percussion. That's
Mm,
where I feel that I'm being limited by the Eurorack format. Of course, I could spend oodles of money and build a separate drum case, but it sort of doesn't scale forever, right?
yes, yeah. Let's talk about just that little topic real quick, just
Mm,
around drum machines, because I think that's a really good place to start.
yeah.
Looking a lot at Eurorack drums and stuff, they're typically done either by like sampling modules or uh, you've got some handful of modules from like I don't know anywhere from 2 to like 8 modules that all handle like kick drums and snares and all sorts of things like that. Some of them
Mm,
are more flexible, like the BIA can be a kick drum or the Crucible can be a kick drum, and either one could be a really sick bass, like they both
yeah.
take volt per octave kind of stuff. So there's some flexibility there, but when you're talking space, you need like something to tell them to turn on, like a trigger, right?
Mm,
So minimum, you need a sequencer for that of some sort, or with multiple triggers out, or like I don't know, MIDI to trigger module or something like that, where you can send signals, all of that. So there's a lot of cables right there, and space. And you need a mixer for them, possibly, because usually it's a lot of voices. Maybe you have like a performance mixer with enough channels where you don't need like a sub mixer, but like it adds up pretty quickly.
it does, and I feel for every choice you make a compromise,
Yep.
the compromises start to rack up for sure. I think I have probably one of the most dense setups you can have in Euro right now. I have two of those Pico drum modules, um, that are just a sample based one, right? And I have the smallest percussion sequence you can have, I think, from or not. There might be smaller ones than that, but at least possibility wise or feature wise, I have the what is it? Uh, One sec. The LL8 from Robo,
Yep.
which is the smallest one of theirs, and
Yep.
then I have one kick drum module, right?
Yep.
So what I basically got there is uh, four voices that only have two controls, two CV inputs there, and I have one fully featured voice, which is the bass drum. Um, I don't have a dedicated sub mixer for it, or I have a sort of a dump mixer for it, so I can't control effects on it, and it wouldn't make sense to control effects on it because it's always going to be two percussion voices from the same output.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be able to do things like gated reverb on like the snare drums or something like that because it would then I would have to disable the other half of it. Um,
Right. Right. I guess I want to loop. So you said there you're making choices, like there's limitations. You're making
yeah,
choices on
for
where
sure.
your limitations are, and I think that that's not going to change in or out of the rack. I think actually in the rack gives you a little more freedom because you can sort of customize it to your will.
Well, it
But
depends on the drum machine, right? You're comparing it to.
right, exactly. Uh, and like outside of the rack, like it's like I don't know, was it like $300 for a drum brute impact, right? Like
Mm.
my drum machine versus like one of those drum modules is going to cost that. So there's some like there's a fiscal comparison in size.
Yeah.
I I like the flexibility in the rack. Like I think it's really cool. I'm just starting to experiment with that, so I'm a little rosy-eyed glasses. But I understand that like my drum proof impact is efficient. Like there were a
Mm.
lot of design decisions I don't agree with. Like I think the snare is underwhelming. The distortion uh, could be heavier, but if you crank the volume knob all the way to the max for each one, you'll get some decent distortion.
Yeah.
And the the cowbell and toms are like the toms are okay. Like there's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they
Yeah. For
work
sure.
okay,
It,
right? Like so there's compromises made on that too because it
there
is a
is for
limited
sure,
machine, right? No
and I
CV
mean there's other
controller.
choices than that. Luckily, I mean, I think
Yes.
with if you're just gonna think standard drum machine, it's gonna
Yeah.
be the impact because it's good with Eurorack as far as I understand. But there's also like the 808 style, the 707 style, 606
Yes.
styles,
And they all
and
have a
they have
similar form factor,
performability as
like a
well. Yeah,
small like built-in sequencer drum machine that has their own sound. Pick the flavor you like, and they run between like three to I don't know $600 for like more of the mass-produced ones. There's like the Soma Pulsar, and those like there's those that are a little more boutique, and they'll be much higher price range.
yeah,
Also very cool and playful, but um, yeah, I guess the point there's going to be limitations no matter which way you go.
yes,
Um,
yes. And then there's the whole sampling territory as well.
Oh, I don't want to talk. We'll say sampling for a minute.
Yeah,
um,
no, but yeah, it's and if there's also sort of the combined Eurorack modules as well, like the Queen of Pentacles, which I
yes,
think is an insanely good idea. I just see a couple of design problems with it.
I
But
agree.
I
I,
mean,
I think it's like 99% there. Well, 95 or something. But like, it's awesome. I'm loving these all-in-one like taking a drum brute impact or a smaller version of it and cramming it into a Eurorack module.
mm,
Chef's kiss, right? But like, give me a MIDI in.
yeah, yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
the
and I mean,
beef I
you
had there.
could probably do that, but there's with with some sort of adapter in between, right?
You would need like a MIDI to CV or a MIDI to trigger module,
Yeah, basically a
or like a
Beasted
mutant
Pro in
brain or
between.
something. Yeah. And the reason I was spoiled. The Rample came with a MIDI in, and it's the simplest thing to set up and sequence if you're using external MIDI controller of some sort. Yeah, Kyle, the that sheet music isn't super hard. It's just like if I don't read it every day, I'm not going to be able to read it quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good sheet reader, but I've grown up playing classical music, both the violin and the viola, so I'm able to read that pretty fast. Uh, but
Y-
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it's a
awesome.
different world.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not that hard. It just, like anything requires a bit of practice.
Yeah, I'm actually bad at transcribing it. It's more when I see a certain note, I know which finger to put where. I forget which note it is, but yeah,
That's funny. Yeah, so hybrid setups like they're a mixed bag, and there's a couple of things sort of working in anyone's favor that's interested in a hybrid setup. Like if you've got modular already and you're looking to expand, like I think there is an array of really cool synthesizers and drum machines and like bass machines coming out like in small form factor that are efficient. Like the I think it's like Nymphis or something like that by Dreadbox. It's
yeah,
like this big or something, but like
and
super
polyphonic,
performable.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it. I saw the video, also a video about it. Yeah, it seemed pretty cool.
And what is it like? $500 to $800. I don't even remember, but it's usually in that
It was
price
around the
range.
$600 mark, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and good. Again, that's one, two modules in a modular aren't going to quite give you that optimized, performable, specific thing in the box easily. Like there's the polycinematic and things that sort of like they're comparable-ish, but like not
yeah.
really.
I really like my polycinematic, but in essence, I think I could get a lot of the same sounds with a polished synth, and
Yeah.
I have the same sequencing challenges as I would have with a regular polysynth. Um,
And that's the sequencing is one of the reasons I like a hybrid setup. Well, I mean, you don't really, you can go about it any number of ways. There are sequencers that output MIDI in the box as well. I think the Eric Black does, and
yeah,
things
not
like that.
polyphonically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like all about the pyramid, the Hapax, the Oxy One looks pretty rad, but like I only have experience with a handful. I like them outside of the box because I can like be pretty flexible in what I connect it to, right? Like, yeah, you need MIDI splitters and MIDI cables in it. And that's kind of
Mm.
a headache in and of itself to learn the ins and outs of MIDI. But I've no challenges connecting to all sorts of things. And with the hotbox, on its way to my house, like connecting to CV stuff will be even easier. So like I can just like set the soft pop next to it. I mean, it's got MIDI in, but I could set it next to it and like uh, sequence like C control voltage inputs to it, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I was experimenting a little bit with patching today, and the thing is, I have this Squab Hermod, which is essentially just the MIDI to CV part, uh,
yeah, yeah,
with recording and all the effects that you have in both the pyramid and the hotbox.
yep,
Um, and it's quite awesome until you start recording into it. So I was actually recording into Ableton and then just using that to MIDI to CV, because if you're doing polyphonic stuff and you want to correct something, it's impossible to do it on the Hermod. So that's already a good starting point from a hybrid. I just need to get away from Ableton. Basically, I just need to
yeah,
have the sequence box, and I think I don't necessarily need the Hapax because I already have the Hermod. It sounds like it's I could just use any sort of grid based sequencer or whatever sequencer to
yes,
just plug it
yes,
in because it does the MIDI to CV just perfectly.
yes. And I would look for something that has a handful of tracks to give you an idea. Like if you're thinking hybrid, like no matter what your space limitations are, like you may want more and more stuff, and you can get creative with how you stack things and all that.
Yeah.
Um, I typically am using like, let's see, on my tracks. Um, Around 13 or so tracks across maybe five
Wow.
or six instruments at least. It depends on the track, on the
Is
song.
that
But
because you do something where you switch from one track to another to do transitions, or?
yeah, so like with the drum brute, I have two different tracks on the drum brute, and typically the one on the left will be like primary sequences, and the one on the left I'll have like additional fills or maybe like snare hits or something. That's just how I set it up for myself.
Hmm.
Uh, it's also really nice if you're playing live and you don't have any plan to have those two side by side tracks. So you can have a track playing, mute the other track, but program in a new sequence into that other one. At least
Right.
that's how I do it. If I could, play better in time, I would just do that. But instead,
Yeah.
I program it while the other one's playing, and then I switch over by just tapping them. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
so I would. What my point is, I would look for something that has maybe double what you're looking for. I mean,
Hmm.
the bare minimum I think is four, which is what like three polyphonic tracks and one drum track, which is what a lot of the sequencers and like the Keystep Pro and things like that have all sort of settled on.
Yeah.
Four tracks is like a really nice bare minimum.
For sure.
But when you get
Yeah, I think.
more, like you might want like a track just for like uh, like triggering like a, a let's see if I even have it on this one. Let's see what number are you on? I think you're on 5. Oops. Yeah, like triggering like the Lucifer in this case, which I'm using for like Morse codey sort of things in place of my Atari Punk. But like that's where a drum, sort of a drum sequencer is really nice. Is that you can like the hot box is actually better set up, so you can have a different MIDI channel and a different CV per drum voice.
Yeah.
which would eliminate the need for me to have as many tracks in a lot of cases because I wouldn't need like a separate track for the the big honking button or the things like that. So
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you saw. No, I think my segue here is that it's really hard to find pure sequences today because everything is groove boxes.
yeah,
I think the Hapax is probably the odd one out there because everybody else basically just does groove boxes.
yeah, and group boxes are a really good place to start too. Like
They are,
this
but they sort of want you to make full tracks on them and use their built-in synthesizers and don't prioritize the sequencing part as highly as far as I see. There is, of course, a lot of exceptions to this, but
kind of, yeah, like
uh,
it depends on the for sure. It depends on the groove box. Like I would say two notable exceptions. Well, there's several stand out, but like the circuit is what I started on. Like it
mm,
was one of the first pieces of hardware I got after the pocket operator because it was like it had a lot of what I wanted in one place. Then when I graduated to like modular, I started using the circuit to try to sequence other things, which it's okay.
mm,
There's the sequencer limitations of it I didn't like, but it's an
yeah,
amazing it's an amazing tool. But the new one, the whatever the circuit tracks or whatever, is like
yeah, there's
primo for
two.
that. Like it's designed to do that kind of thing, and it's great.
Mm,
The OPZ is a basically a sequencer that happens to have sounds in it. Like it's
right.
an incredible sequencer. The uh, things like the polyN tracker and like those like there's a range of groove boxes, uh, like all of the Akai products almost
Mm,
that are good at sequencing and controlling other machines. Yeah, it's not hard to build a synth on top of a Groovebox sequencer system. To
no, for sure. Right.
to
Yeah.
Kyle's point, but I I don't know. I just didn't like. There's some things that I found frustrating with a lot of those is like making sure there's not a voice on them, and I
Mm,
don't know. Tracker systems might be an exception because typically the trackers are a little more like every option is available to you. like
yeah.
like when you create an instrument, it doesn't even have to have a sound necessarily. It could just be a MIDI channel, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to dive into that tracker thing. I've been looking at it in the past, and I don't think it's for me.
I'm dipping my toes in the water, so I'll report back.
Good, good. Yeah,
um,
no,
yeah.
I mean, did you see? I'm a big fan of Jeremy from Red Means Recording, and
Mhm.
he had a thing about his live setup, a video about his live setup the other day, and I think that's perhaps the gold standard for something that just works with the Eurorack and with everything. Basically, he was using an Octatrack as his
Yeah.
resampling and mixer system, and then he was using the Deluge as the sampler and sequencer, and he was using the Hermitage as I am to interface to the modular,
Yeah, and
and
I actually
that's
really
super
liked
cool.
that video because it's very similar to how I use stuff. Like
Mm,
my obviously my sequencer is the pyramid, so there's no sounds in it, which I'm cool with. Like that's
yeah,
fine. Um, I I don't have a great solution for a sampler yet, but I'm optimistic. But I do use it to control lots of things, and it's like fun to be able to do that and mix it up and like not have to stress like pulling out CV cables or running out of CV channels.
yeah,
Like I'm really looking forward to the yeah the hay packs and hopefully at some point I'll build a MIDI to trigger Cosmo module for the things like the big honking button and
right,
you know
yeah,
atonal stuff.
yeah. I've seen a lot of people use the Octatrack in a really cool way with Eurorack. One of the cool things I've seen is that people use it to like sample the whole thing into, and then
Yes.
use the slider to just fade to the recorded part of it, then change the patch, load new stuff into their sequencers, and then crossfade back into the next track. And that seems like a really cool way to do performances when you need some time to just prepare the next thing. Something
Yeah.
that's otherwise a little bit tricky to do.
Yeah, and I was talking to Stu J and CK last week about the Akai Force, and it sounds like that's something the Akai Force can do really nicely too. Like
Right.
it's you can do something like um, essentially record in a loop, right? A sequence
Mm.
like audio in, and just hit play on that, and then cut everything else out. Do whatever you want, and then like go to the next. Like it's pretty cool to be able to do that
Yeah.
with these devices now.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
But I feel like these are hard to choose between because they're so damn expensive. So you kind of need to get the right one the first time around.
No, I mean they're all. I mean,
I mean,
I would I
the
would say
regular
look at what
recording
you've
setup.
used and figure out what you like, and then
Yeah.
just guess. And I've had pretty good luck with that.
Yeah.
Um, like the MPC workflow uh, isn't quite for me. Like it's close. Like I would be happy with it. It's a really nice machine. Um,
But it seems quite
the
a lot like a DAW and more than a jamming device, right?
well, it's both. It can be as much or as little of a DAW as you want,
Okay.
um, which is cool. With just a better interface, and the NI machine is pretty cool too. Like Kyle has mentioned, like there's just a lot of cool, like sort of these powerful digital Groovebox. I say Groovebox, but they're much more complex than that.
Yeah.
These powerful machines. Um, yeah, I mean, what I want is just like sequences that are easy for me to program in, like quickly program things in with flexibility in what I can send out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my biggest priority right now is figuring out the drum situation. It's not as urgent as it could have been, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's the sequencing thing because I'm really tired of not being able to have the polyphonic stuff alongside the monophonic stuff. It's just an extra step. I have to use my PC. I have to record into Ableton, then transfer over to the Hermit when I'm satisfied with it. That's just not a very good workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at like there's a whole range of sequencers that can do this, but like there a lot of them have sort of a chord mode, which is pretty cool. Um, Meaning you can like push a button and it's a chord, right? But more importantly, they have ways for you to modify that after the fact, which is
Right.
pretty like that's the
Yeah. I mean,
challenge.
I feel a little bit. Chord mode is a thing we're used to, right? We have that on Plaid's
Yeah.
module as well as that. I feel it's like that meme with "Mom, can I have polyphony at home?" Um, because it's. I mean, I want to play the keyboard when I do polyphony. I want to do things where I mean, have one thing in the right hand and another thing in the left hand, and that's just not the same as saying I want a D minor here and an F minor here. It's different.
Yeah, that's I mean, there's two ways to go about that. One, multiple computers, one something like I mean not multiple controllers like multiple keyboards doing different things. One like a key step 88 or whatever and split keyboard type devices. Um, I like the pyramid because I can have it set up that any MIDI goes to whatever is the active track,
Yeah.
which I really like. And I think you can also set it up to split it so it's only listening to one channel. So you could have like the left half of the keyboard be like sort of your Omni, whatever active track is, and your right hand be like whatever a specific track is. So you could do the dual
Yeah, but
keyboard thing.
it's not the live playing part that's the problem really. It's
Yeah,
the making a patch, making a track, making a groove that just
yeah,
is right and I'm able to sequence properly and
yeah.
especially correct mistakes within sort of a thing because that's completely impossible with the Hermit.
Yeah, I found it kind of nightmarish actually on the pyramid at first, and I just got used to it at this point. Like I don't think
Mm.
it's better because the pyramid is effectively the sequencer is or the note program. Yeah, the sequencer is all 16 pads right here, and that's it.
Mm.
So one bar, and it's one note at a time is what you can see.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at editing a chord, I have to like unpush a button, hit display, scroll to like one of the notes that I want, modify it, go to the next note,
Yeah,
like that kind of thing.
it's kind of the same thing for the Hermit. Let's see if this works. Probably doesn't, but this is the Hermit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sort of
yeah,
on the top or upside down right now.
yeah, yeah,
But if I go to the actual steps here, you just see one big, broad, wide bar here,
yeah,
and I can sort of navigate around. But the thing is, it's really impossible to correct one chord in here because it's just recorded in. It's all just wide, broad bars
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard, yeah, and that's one thing that excited me about the Hotbox is that I can quickly, like I can see,
Have the grid. You have the grid. You can just
maybe
do stuff on the grid, right?
yeah, I can see 8 notes at a time, and that just reduces the amount of scrolling and guessing. But
Yeah. I think I would be perfectly content with a setup like that.
and I jive. I really like Swarp's products that I've used. I like the Rample. I like the Pyramid. I've not used the Hermod because I haven't needed it because I have a MIDI to CV module that I built. And honestly, if I was going to get the MIDI to CV, I'm looking at like the Mutant Brain or something a little more configurable and condensed. Like I don't really want a sequencer in that. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's many. Well, there's probably some, but it's a quite powerful MIDI to CV module. This, and
yes, yeah,
especially the ability to go MIDI to CV to MIDI to MIDI in the same track is super handy. Uh,
yes,
the effects
and
probably work the same way as the pyramid. You can put them up in order, so some of them go out on one MIDI, and then you put an arpeggiator on the next one and go out on different MIDI channel.
yes, and I will say the MIDI effects are really powerful. Like being able to quickly generate ARPs or even generative sequences just using MIDI effects. So like I could put in one note, hit it with a random, hit it with a range thing, a scale, ARP, like chord, like all this stuff. Like you can chain these effects and have a really nice generative output and like zero footprint. So
Yep.
I think they're pretty cool. Obviously, ARP is my go-to,
Yeah,
but I
the ARP is really nice on it. Yeah, I think my favorite effect is probably the Euclidean pattern stuff. It's really
yes.
powerful and really easy to use, and ARPs is a close second.
Yeah, I don't love the Euclidean mode on the pyramid. I think it's a little better on the Hermod.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's pretty cool to be able to do that with just like MIDI, right? Like
Yeah.
it's doing that similar stuff with CV already in Eurorack with a handful of modules. But I think that's the value in the Hermod. Uh, but again, I have the pyramid, so I don't need it.
No, no,
It's
of course
already
not.
baked
Yeah.
in. Um,
I think the only thing you would gain is sort of the 8 channels,
yeah.
which gives you the opportunity to do polyphony with separate oscillators in your as well. But
Well, what I
that's
have is 6 channels on mine, and I can actually set it up in a polyphonic mode,
okay.
like fully polyphonic,
Yeah.
which I've done. I just I realized how quickly it didn't sound good to
Yeah,
me.
if you have a really big setup with all those Dofer polyphonic modules, then quad modules, and I suppose it makes sense. But yeah, I've tried polyphony with 4 different oscillators that are not the same. That sounds pretty weird.
Yeah, it can be okay. It can be a nice effect if you're doing some things, but
Yeah,
yeah, like there's watching Sam Battle at Look Mom No Computer do the Game Boy Mega Machine over the last couple of years has run into a lot of these issues like that feel like a no-brainer. Like, okay, if I want 3 voice polyphony, all I need are 3 of the same oscillators, 3 of the same filters, etc. But like then you get into controlling it, and you're like, okay, well, if I'm really playing something that I expect to behave like an instrument, I want one filter knob that
yeah,
controls all 3 voices at the same time, right? And that's where you start running into like, okay, I need a very specific module that does this, all
yeah,
that stuff.
yep.
Not as fun as I thought it would be. I mean, it was fun. It was fun to play with, but it's not something that I go to that often.
No, for sure, for sure. I think
Also,
we should
yeah,
should park this topic and talk a little bit about it
yeah,
and all that stuff you were playing yesterday. That's pretty awesome. You had a
Yeah, I
where
was
you change patches all the time or tracks all the time.
yeah, and that was the less brutal version of it. What I actually spent the weekend before doing, or probably like 8 hours total, is going through every single project on my pyramid and recording short clips of it, and then comparing those to every single video I've ever put out, every live
Shit.
stream, because I couldn't remember what matches up to what, right? And like
Mm.
trying to do that, and so I basically found it, I think like 10 to 12 tracks that I thought might be a good fit to play in person and could maybe play well together. And those, I put those on a card together, and that's what I was playing yesterday. Was going through and seeing like, okay, let's see if this track I recorded 2 years ago is compatible with like this other track that I made. Like, do I need a completely different patch, or is it just a matter of changing a couple MIDI channels to or be different instruments and stuff?
This sounds
Um,
completely impossible to me. I mean, if I have like what do I have 32 different projects saved on the Black Sequencer. I can probably find 40 for the Hermod, and I'm not sure how I would have patched anything together. Which voices are really there?
Yeah, and I think part of that is just the style that I've grown attached to in terms of making music is less generative, less, you know, East Coast and I aren't really buddies, even though I appreciate it and like the sounds of. It's just not something I've ever done a lot of.
Yeah.
So my patch tends to be pretty similar, where I've got like some sort of lead voice, some sort of bass voice,
Mm.
both controlled with MIDI. Uh, a drum track and sometimes extra things, right?
Right.
Like the core of it is about 3 to 4 things. And so I'll look at that and be like, okay, I guess a couple of years ago I used a different MIDI channel, so let's swap that around and see if it sounds similar. Okay, I don't care if it's the same. I just want it to sound good. Um, and because I'm looking at like the melody and bass line when picking out stuff more than like the exact patch sound or the sound design necessarily. And that's hasn't changed too much, right? Like I still typically use. Now I've grown to 3 lead voices because I've crammed them in the box. I've got like 2 oscillator lead, a 2 oscillator bass, and then Castor and Pollux for like a sort of random stuff in between.
Mm.
Support.
Yeah,
Let's call it
pretty
support.
pretty amazing. It's a little bit mind blowing for me right now. I just need to take it in. You can actually do the same thing more than once in Eurorack. That's a
Right.
little bit
And
of a
like
surprise to me.
with those parameters, like if I and I haven't changed the channels around too much. Like I know
Mm.
channel one's probably going to be a lead voice. I could fully pull this and do a really totally different wild patch, totally different modules, and end
Mm.
up with like using the same melody, but maybe I dramatically change the sound design of it.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
sort of how I approach
I
things.
think I will try to do that exercise at some point as well. I'm not sure it'll be very fruitful, but I think it's a good thing to do. I used to save all my patches on the Hermod just date marked, so it will always be like
That is the
year,
way to do
the
it.
month, day 0 or 1 or however many patches I do in one day, which is always only maximum one.
Yeah, I always hated that because it felt like weird and vague, and I like naming things. I'm a full convert on naming it the date because I
Yeah.
stream. And if I name it as the date, and then I go and look back my backlog of streams, and like I like a track, I can be like, okay, let's look for something that was made at least a little bit before this one, and I can usually find it pretty quickly. But the large, overwhelming majority of mine were not named that way. They were named with completely different names to what I named the stream.
Yeah.
Uh, and I
I
would
think that's one of
say,
my gripes with the Black
yeah,
Sequencer is that you can't do that. It's just you could have a project folder, and then it's just patch 1 to 16
uh,
or
yeah,
bank 1 to 16.
yeah. I like being able to name stuff dates. Like that's my
Yeah.
jam now. I will never name anything else outside of like on the actual streams because last weekend was a completely joy-sucking experience trying to line up projects with um, stream like the jams. That was horrible. I'd never wish that on anybody.
I think one of your advantages here is that you use quite a lot of analog voices,
Yeah.
and especially when you go to sort of back to the beginning of my Eurorack ventures, it was all multifunction digital modules, right? I have like the Plats and the Pico voice, things like that can sound like 10 different things that are completely different, right?
Yeah, and I'm in that boat too with the micro freak of, like,
Right.
right. It can be a huge range of things from like crappy organ to oh, sorry, you're getting a little bit of the let me turn this off. Right,
Yeah.
like all on the same thing, right? Like, so matching up that to a sequence kind of matters ish, but when I'm
Mm.
looking to match them up, all I care about is like looking to see if it's something polyphonic or monophonic. And then, like, I don't care if I'm trying to find the exact voice. I just want something that sounds good. So I go, if it's monophonic, I go to like some presets I made. If it's polyphonic, I go to some presets I made. Like,
Yeah.
that's about it. Because I was just trying to match them up. And then once I have them matched up, like for the performance, what I'll have is a handful of notes, which is like rough idea of what the lead should be like, rough idea of what the bass should be like, and then the preset for the micro freak.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking a lot of times that maybe I should do more about documenting my patches for exactly this reason, so I could find them one day and go back to my old streams and collect sort of the best things I've made, and maybe that gives me some stuff I can do a full set with someday. Um, I mean, I've been super undisciplined about documenting my patches, but I think it's probably not worth doing either. I've been thinking in terms of, should I just have like a standard patch I always default to? Should I have like, well, this module can only use this filter, or it's voice one is always this module, things like that. It sort of takes away some of the joy I have with Eurorack, because part of the joy is also just to tear all the cables out and just see. I wonder what happens if I plug this up to this one and do this with this filter or whatever.
right,
Um,
exactly. And I would say for documentation, I've tried a bunch of things as of you. I mean, we both briefly talked about patch diagrams and how horrible that is,
yep,
both to painstakingly make and to then reproduce.
yep,
Completely joyless experience, horrible.
yep,
Do not recommend it. I would say if you want to document a patch, take a couple photos and then you have
yep.
timestamps.
Especially once you get better at organizing your cables, so you're not just looking at a Christmas tree, essentially.
Yeah, right. And, but like, yeah, just take some photos. And I don't
Yeah,
need that so much with the like I've the Cosmo format is limiting to an extent in that they're bigger modules, so fewer modules. So I'm like
mm,
really good at I don't know, the 25 modules or whatever's in here. That I haven't changed, right? Like I
yeah,
know where things go. I can probably listen to something and try to recreate it in the neighborhood. I don't care about making the exact patch so much, but for things like the Bit Ranger, where it's downstairs, but it has all these really tiny cables, and you can actually do like all the sequencing and things on it that's not something I'm familiar with. It's a very joyful experimental process for me. Like it's just discovery. It's a whole fun discovery. Like, ooh, cool. When I want to document that stuff, like I tried patch, diagrams and stuff. Like
yeah,
photo is the best way to go. Like my
yeah,
my only, if I like something, I will live stream it. I will take a photo sometimes. And if it's sequenced by that, I'll save the sequence. But like that's how I document now. Like I don't care to do anything else. Like I can watch the live stream and like listen for things like, okay, that's what I did there. Cool. Maybe I can see the cable layout. Probably not that good. And that's where the photos come in as like a nice, point me in the right direction. Probably won't get me all the way there because again, it's hard to follow them. Even
yeah,
in the
yeah, for
photo.
sure. Yeah, I'm also starting to at the end of my stream just do a patch breakdown,
Yeah.
because that's useful for everybody and it's useful for myself. So
Yeah.
when I need to recreate it in the future, I can just listen to myself explaining it to myself.
That's smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I I guess the better question is, have you ever like how often do you try to recreate a patch? I get,
Uh, I've never done that. I've
uh,
never done it.
yeah, I mean, I do it all the time. Like every time I unplug this thing, right? Like I know what I like, and I know it
Yeah.
might as well be a monosynth, but that's fine. I how I like it.
Yeah.
So I can do mine almost in my sleep, um, which isn't a problem. It's like okay, yeah, I've got an attack release envelope here. I know I'm probably going to send a trigger out from here to that to the probably ducking input of my cockpit too,
Yeah.
right? Like stuff like that. Like I'm going to do it the same every time. So
It ends up being more or less the same with a couple of variations here. I mean, whichever ADSR gets it, it doesn't really matter.
yeah,
I have a couple of them, and they're all different. But in the end, an ADSR is sort of an ADSR as long as
right.
you don't do weird drones where you require specific functionality. Um, and there's
Hey,
some
I
voices
love
that
my
I don't catch up.
ADSRs. They're above and beyond, it turns out, a lot of other ADSRs. Because, like, I can just flick them on. I have momentary on. Super handy stuff, you know?
Yeah,
Super good.
yeah,
But yeah, ADSRs are ADSRs. Like, it's an
they
envelope.
are. I mean, yeah, the only difference seems to be, oh, well, the main difference for me, it looks like, seems to be how much you can program their sort of response curve and how much CV control there is into it. But if
Forrestine,
you're
to make
doing
you
into
feel better.
music,
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, if you're doing sort of techno-ish music, it doesn't matter too much.
No. And Forrestine, like, when I've tried to like repatch, even with like my cool patch diagrams and stuff that I did, anytime I try to repatch something, not only does it just kill me inside, uh, it's just been failure. like like this doesn't sound like that. Why is it not? I don't know. It looks like the picture. I
Yeah,
don't know. Because it's a combination, right? Like you've got to not note like knob locations and all the patch wiring and um, all that stuff. And like the knob stuff, especially with like the BitRanger, Soft Pop, or like any Eurorack thing I've ever used, is so hard to get precise. Like oftentimes, like a millimeter of travel is a huge change. So it's like near impossible for me to reproduce anything. At
yeah, for
least on
sure.
the sort of like generative East Coasty stuff.
Kyle writes, best way to save patches is to buy a clone of your system.
Or
That
build.
doesn't solve the knob position problem, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It
But
doesn't, but like again, on Cosmo, it's less important for whatever reason. I don't know.
yeah,
I had problems making my patches over again.
I remember I saw a video from the woman who runs endorphins, and she has like her gig system and just sits there,
Yep.
nobody touches it, and then she has her experimental system, and if there's really something that needs to be changed of the live system, she does it, but otherwise it's just there, nobody
Yeah.
touches it.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at right now because I have a
Yeah,
gig on Friday. Like this
exactly.
is this is the patch it's gonna be, and I just added the Lucifer in here as a filler because I liked the name
Mm.
when I bought it, but it turns out like on a whim I was like I wonder if that can fill in for the Atari Punk console in terms of like the like I don't know SOS sort of vibe or like digitally stuff like that, and it worked perfectly. So everything is
Cool.
patched up for the first time. Every
Yeah.
single module is being used, um, and I don't know.
Are you going to bring the phone with you as well? Use it on stage to talk to people, talk to the audience?
Yes, I
Cool. Good stuff.
am. Sorry, I don't know if the levels were right.
A little low, but doesn't matter. We
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
gist of it.
yeah. I am bringing it. It is ready to go. I mean, when I'm traveling, it will be unplugged, and the phone will be in this travel case. But so that like all of the moving parts are
Yeah.
are
And you're gonna transport the rack with the cables in, right?
to an extent. There are I think 6 to 7 cables that go between these two cases, and I will pull those. I know where they go.
Yeah.
But everything else I'll keep in there, and I may do like some zip ties or something to keep these sort of like less dangly, so there's less chance of like hooking a doorknob or
Can
something.
I
But
recommend small cut sheets of Velcro?
yeah, I have some. Yeah,
Just get a shitload of. Yeah, I just got a huge roll I could just cut to size. That's the
yeah,
way to go.
yep. And I think that I have a bunch of that kind of stuff that I think came with instrument cables that downstairs that I'll probably use. But they're as far as handling them, they're like they've got handles in the middle,
Mm,
balanced too. So they're pretty easy to carry like a suitcase. So yeah,
cool stuff.
a little electrical tape on cables removing and Sharpie where they go. I could, but I don't need to because it's again I know where they go. We're good.
Yeah.
They're like the essentials that like you can't mess up. Like the pitch I know is going to like that particular buffered mult, the gate with that voice next to it, etc. That kind of stuff. It's like
Yeah.
not,
Take
not
photos.
they're not like well no I've moved it a few times up and downstairs and like practice moving a little bit, and it's not something I have to think about too hard. If I have an extra cable, it's like, okay, it's this long and it has this on the end. Okay, that's probably going to go here. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
yeah. And as far as power bricks and stuff, I am bringing this, which essentially houses my power strip. And this case itself is done. Let me grab the lid if I can reach it without tearing the headphone cable out. Here's the back side of it. Now with foam.
Nice. That's noise protective stuff, right? Looks like the stuff you put in walls in studios.
It is. It's the same because when you look up case foam, I guess that's what comes up too.
Right.
And I like it because it's a little more squishy than the other dense case foam, which is behind it. So it allows for knobs and stuff to not be busted.
Yeah.
But this goes over this stuff with only like there's more cables in it now just because the oscilloscope and stuff are here. But essentially these two cables will be in it, which are the micro freaking drum brute. This one cable here connects the audio to the stereo out of Cosmo, and the MIDI cable will connect to Cosmo, and that's it in a power cable. So like 3 cables come out of this and into it. Like that's, and I'll transport the MS-10 separately. It's not going to live in this, but
It's a really good idea.
that's what I did here. It is really heavy though, so I may add some rollerblade wheels. We'll see.
Good idea. I think my
Yeah,
next thing is gonna be in trying to see if I can make some ergonomics work for me in the small corner I have with my Eurorack, where I can just I want just basically a tiered thing where I can have my keyboard and maybe that whatever group box I end up investing in,
yep,
maybe a small mixer or something like that on top of it. Because right now I don't have anywhere to put it. It's just going to be
yeah.
stuff that I have to take out of a cupboard and put on the table or whatever.
And those are my next projects up here. Like before downstairs, I was on like recycled kitchen counter, and
Right.
like that's it was all just down there when I moved in from like their old kitchen, I guess. And I repurposed it, and it was ergonomically pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do something in a similar vein. I probably won't do like the kitchen cabinets up there. I want like a counter space here. Probably not this box. Like this takes up a lot more space than it needs to.
Yeah.
So I'll probably pull all this stuff out after the show, but I'll have a counter there of some sort that it's flexible. It's fun to be able to like switch things out and all that. And then I'm thinking of doing like probably like up to here and then down to here, like an angled, essentially shelf with some levels on it to
Like for synths or
yeah, some
yeah.
like set like the Mini Log XD and like the soft pop and any of those kind of things on. Um, yeah, so that's my plan there.
I think it's a good idea. I think you should just generally just have your synths out so you can play on them. Otherwise, if they're packed down, you just don't do it.
Yeah, I agree. If they end up in storage for too long, I get rid of them because like
Makes
I'm
sense.
not playing them. Um, yeah, so that's my plan. It means some like IKEA trips to like figure out shelving and stuff because like I
But
want
hey, look
these.
at the good side. They have meatballs.
They I do love the meatballs actually.
Yeah,
And the shoot, what is the name of those berries? I don't know.
lingonberries.
The lingonberry jam and stuff like that are delicious.
It is.
Uh, yeah, so I'm gonna try to optimize storage under here, under there. Sorry, I'm like blasting Behringer, the brand with that amp under there. But what I should do is just draw on it because it doesn't actually work. I've had it since like high school or something, and it's finally crapped out. And I'm not gonna buy any more stuff from them. So
Yeah,
just draw on it. Or turn it into my own amp cabinet of some sort with a different logo on it. But whatever.
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know. I have my Behringer Neutron. It's a
I think the
pretty awesome
neutral. I
device.
think the stuff they like make their own is pretty
Yeah,
cool. But the
yeah,
stuff I just am so sick of them just like straight up copying shit. I just don't care about them anymore. I just got annoyed.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's one thing to reproduce old stuff. It's another when you like straight up copy like the key step. Like, what are you
yeah.
doing?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They they
Uh,
they deserve to be called out on that stuff because that's not okay.
303 or whatever they called it. Especially that yellow one. Are you kidding me? It screams at me. It's buy me,
Yeah,
but not happening. Yeah, I'll have to make one.
yeah. I actually just watched a review of that today. Seemed pretty cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, and the new Behringer Volcas look pretty good.
They have
Like I think
Behringer
everything they
vocals there,
make is decent. Like decent to really good. It sort of depends on the product. Um, I have no problem with their like quality
right?
at all. Uh,
No, I mean they're at a competitive price point, right? So
yeah, and I like that overall goal of like dropping down the price point on some things, which is cool.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of the stuff we deal with in Eurorack is kind of boutique, right?
yeah,
So it's always going to be super mixed when a larger player, and I don't think Behringer really qualifies as a larger player, but they are comparatively so in the Eurorack space.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, they've their module choices have been sort of mixed, right? They made the Platts clone called Brains.
Yeah.
Um,
Like they don't even try to really hide it. Like I think it's there's a, there's a lack of respect there, I think, for the community. So I don't know.
yeah,
That's all. I don't want to talk about Behringer too much
no,
more.
no, that's not.
I just
It's a minefield anyway,
yeah.
so that's not.
I don't care. You know, I'm not worried about that. If anyone wants to like yell at me for my opinions on Behringer, come at me, bro. I don't care. Come, dude, DM me. It's fine. I don't care. Uh, but yeah, so that's. I mean, I am thinking heavily about ergonomics in this place as
Yeah,
the next couple months. What
yes. So
else?
am I, especially because I don't have any space at all. So I think at some point there's only one logical choice, and that's buy a house.
Buy a house, and you can like go vertically to an extent, right? Like I'm using like this much space vertical. That's a lot of synths if you go across even a small room, you know? Like
It
this
is,
isn't
yeah.
a huge room.
I think the challenge there is I would have to mount something into the walls, and I don't want to do that since it's a rental, and I don't want to pay for
I've
filling up my own holes
I've
afterwards.
I've broken that rule a few times.
Yeah, so have I. But
Toothpaste is a good filler.
well, filler is a good filler as well.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true if you do it right. Uh, Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go up without putting holes in your wall,
Yeah,
unless you're like building like furniture. But
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and again, I'm in a luxury in that I don't have to worry about earthquakes, right? Like, I don't think this would fly in like San Francisco or something, right? LA, where there's like things need to be sort of bolted down.
Yeah, yeah. That's not a concern I have either.
Yeah.
Norway
So,
is seismically very stable.
yep, totally agree. Depending on the next election, I might try to move there. We'll see.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I would love to. At first I was a little concerned, but now after living in cold at 8,000 feet for a few years, I'm like stoked about more snow. Let's do it.
Yeah, we have a bit of everything,
Yep.
depending on how much snow you want.
Yep. More.
Okay, I'm sure that could be arranged.
I'm really good at shoveling or
Yeah,
snow blowing, depending on the snow the storm. If it's above 6 inches, it's time to break out the blower. I don't know. I don't even know how to translate this. 6 inches to centimeters. If it's above 15-ish centimeters, I don't shovel. I snow blow.
I've never seen that in downtown Oslo, but I mean I'm in the middle of the city, so that never happens there anyway. Um,
Yeah, and it's not super common here either. So I just prefer shoveling, even though it's a long driveway, because it's more eco-friendly and it's fun for me to do.
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, enough about shoveling. What else? Anything else I wanted to talk about? I got a bunch of new modules and have had no time to play with them, so I'm
ooh,
sad about that, but excited at the same time.
which ones did you get?
Well, I got. You won't be able to see this because have the camera set up right.
Also, your video quality is kind of deteriorated the last 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll do better. I get what I can get here.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so performance mixer, eh. I mean, it's cool. It's really
Mm,
cool, but it's not like exciting because it doesn't make sound, etc.
yeah.
Metron, very excited about that. Cruise, Crater, Kraken, and that's about it here. But I have a handful of like error instruments and mouse and the cat and uh, the data bender, and I'll move some of these modules out of my main case over like the Castor and Pollux and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about the drum side of things, specifically to be able to play with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one thing on the way. I haven't ordered anything for ages, but I have something I ordered October perhaps, and completely forgot about, it and then found out it was back ordered anyway. It's black replacement panels for my Moskva. I'm super excited about that.
For your what?
The Moskva sequencer.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Black Panel Club.
It's
Yeah.
super annoying process basically because I visited every web shop I could find in Europe just to see if somebody had them in stock when I was looking for them, and I mean before Christmas basically. And I found a shop in the Netherlands that had it, and I ordered it, and nothing happened. And then I wrote them, and they basically told me that they didn't have them in stock,
Oh,
despite saying so. So they shipped last Friday.
okay. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm really fired up to get going on that stuff. Like I complained about it a little bit earlier. The snares that I'm using they're not my favorite. They're adequate, and I like their performability in terms of like opening up the decay and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Very excited about the Kraken. Very excited about the Crater for both drums and bass lines.
Yeah.
And then I think and during when I go to Denver to the show, I'm going to swing by and pick up a BIA
Hmm.
because Robbie thinks I need it, and I agree. From I think Sign Mountain is selling it, so I'll pick it up from them, and it'll be a drum party.
Cool,
I'll
cool.
have my mini, I'll have my mini Cosmo Impact or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah,
drum setup over there.
it's cool
Very
to have
excited.
more. I mean, you can't have too many percussion voices. You can always just pick which one you want to use that day, right?
Yeah, and I want to. I also want to get a Mutant Brain as a MIDI to CV or MIDI to trigger in this case
Mm,
module, but I'm purposefully not buying it because I want to get good at the Metron first.
right.
But I think once I have a good MIDI to CV, and I'm going to build a regular MIDI to CV Cosmo, or build a Cosmo MIDI to CV over there too. So I'll be able to just hook up a couple MIDI cables to each audio out into a mixer.
Mm.
Good time.
Yeah,
So
I think I would have been excited over the performance mixer though.
I'm less I'm less so because a lot of the features it has, like I'm already used to, I guess,
Yeah,
to an
I mean,
extent.
I was reasonably excited when I got the hex mix system, which is sort of similar but not, or but
Yeah.
differently shaped, right? But only because of auxiliary sense, which I was missing quite a lot at the time. So suddenly being able to route my voices to the same effects was like, whoa! I can do now stuff I could never do before.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been. I mean, I haven't experimented with that much. What I've been doing to that end is like routing them into this mixer, essentially duplicating them. And this one's pretty cool too. It's got on, off, and temporary on because I customized it that way.
Yeah,
But and there's sends for each channel, or for each channel in my mixer. Like I can pull out the voice in each mixer. So like
yeah.
in this, I pull the voice out, go into some special effects, and then back in that kind of stuff.
I have stubbornly refused to buy an external mixer, and now it's apparently a hill I'm supposed to die on. It's all going to be
Oh,
in drag.
yeah, but like I would say for external mixers, like who cares?
Yeah,
Is like I I think I'm only going to use it like as I only typically use it as a utility. There's some performability to it, but it is what it is. I like internal mixers better,
mm.
uh,
Yes,
especially
so
like
do I. So do I.
VCA mixers. And in the to its credit, the performance mixer, I am somewhat excited about it having, uh, well, 8 channels of VCAs
Yeah,
and also pan controls over all of those. The pan is something I'm very excited about.
yeah, that's the thing that's missing from the hex mix. Basically, you have a pan knob, but you don't have the CV for it.
Right. And I don't know if this doesn't it have an expander. I don't know if the expander has a
No,
control for that.
the hex panel doesn't have that either,
Oh,
and it has multi-tracking out, which I've never used, but
that's
pretty
cool.
handy.
That's cool.
Um, I haven't gotten the Hexmix VCA yet, but that's probably my next purchase because then I can take the VC8. I have the 8 times VCA and replace it with a slimmer one that connects directly to the Hexmix system. That I mean I save 6 cables and a number of HP, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Kyle, I'm excited. I'm very excited over the CV over pan. Like this is something I've wanted for a long time. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also hoping, optimistically, this is dreaming,
Mm.
that in the future, that Eurorack box will be able to replicate some of the functionality of these boxes. So potentially performing live, I can bring, just a couple of these size cases and a sequencer. So that's fingers crossed.
You should be able to replicate the melodic part of it at least. I mean, whether it sounds like the other case is a different question, right? You could take
Well,
your tracks and put them into a different sequencer, different oscillators, and you will
right. Well,
melodically
I'm
be the same.
hoping, some of the oscillators and things like all the Cosmo format projects, for the most part, have like I don't know if open source is the right word, but their schematics are available, so you can just
Hmm.
build it yourself. So I could build, or somebody could build uh, the components I need to make similar voices. So that is in the realm of possibility,
Yeah.
but I'll probably start with other things unless somebody magically comes out with something.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me it sounds like well, if they're built with sort of standard components as well, you'll probably find similar
Yeah.
oscillators already existing with
Yeah.
similar chips, right?
Well, right. Like when I when I was fixing that burnt out MS-20 filter here that I complained about last week, that I'd purchased, it was like I had all the components already because I'd already built my own MS-20 filters. Like they
Right.
were, for whatever reason, that one's resonance sucks. But I'm gonna probably pull it apart after the show and test all the components because something was not done right.
Right. Yeah.
The high pass sounds really good on it though, so I'm okay with that part of it. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for. Like, I do have the hotbox coming, which I don't see that. Like I see that being my main primary sequencer period.
Yeah.
But for live stuff, I'm really, really banking on, well, hoping that the M8, that little handheld Game Boy like thing,
Hmm.
could potentially be my primary sequencer and sampler because it does have stereo sampling, which I'm very much looking forward to. Because if I have that paired with my sequencer or whatever, I can do things like without a computer, I can do things like my oscilloscope music, where I've got like designs happening in the oscilloscope, that kind of stuff that requires stereo sampling. The Rample can kind of do it ish, but it's not really what I want. So this opens up the possibility for fairly unlimited number of those kind of things. So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
stoked about that. So we'll see how that
Mhm.
performs, and
Yeah.
if I even like again, if I even like tracker style sequencing, which I think I do. I've tried some similar stuff. I think it'll be fine. It's not too far off from my current workflow. Just got more programmatic. Like if you're a computer nerd like me, you'll dig some of the more programmatic things it can do.
Probably. Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's
Yeah. I mean,
performable.
I
That's
should
like the
give
big
give
deal.
that. I should give that a chance as well. But I mean, it shouldn't be too hard. You can just download a tracker software off the net and just try to see if it's
Yeah,
something for you.
that one you can run headless. I'm gonna probably try that after. I mean, in the next couple months because I'm spending all my free time trying to get ready for a live performance because it's not something I've ever done with this
Mm.
stuff, and
Oh, it's pretty
it's
exciting. I
kind of
agree.
cool. So
Yeah.
um,
And when is the gig?
it's on Friday the
Yeah.
18th.
Is
At
it streamed?
I don't think it'll be streamed. I will probably. I need to ask if I can record stuff, but I'm pretty sure I can. I'll probably have a GoPro on and record the video, and then the mixer I use has an SD card for the audio, so I'll at
Yeah.
least record those things if I can, and then upload them.
Good stuff.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it won't be streamed. There'll be like it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be 4 performers.
Hmm.
Uh, Patched out at Black Box. Tickets are free. Yeah,
Cool.
but spend lots of
Yeah.
money at the bar if you go because I get a cut.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit far for me. It's not right my neighborhood, unfortunately. Otherwise,
Yeah, I
I've
don't
been
think
there.
you should go necessarily. I mean, I would enjoy if you showed up, but it's maybe a little far.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone watching this later on, check it out. Actually, I imagine by the time you watch this, the video will already be uploaded. So
Probably.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna call it because
Yep.
I'm sort of fading. I don't know why. Daylight
I've
savings time has
been
messed me up.
hanging out for more than an hour now, so that's fair.
Yeah, good call, Kyle. And that's a really good tip. So Kyle just said in chat, remember not to rush your
Mm.
set. This is something I learned when I give talks and stuff at conferences. Like, have a water bottle. It's like my
Yeah.
favorite tip. Like, drink
Yeah.
because it slows you down. It allows you to think. And the same thing during my sets, even when I'm doing like live streams and stuff. Like, one, I need to drink to hydrate, and two, it's just like it gives me a second to pause and like let things play. Because like while it's new to everybody listening, it's not new to me, and I get bored fast.
Yeah,
So uh,
yeah, that's a really good point. The sequences you've heard 1,000 times, they haven't heard it before, so
yeah.
give it time to sink in.
Yeah, and with this particular sequencer, I'm using the pyramid, so I can't switch tracks like gracefully. So not going to do like tons of like rapid song switches or things like that
Hmm.
that I would like to, because I think it would be so cool to like the song switching on the dual song thing on the dual project thing on the Apex is
Hmm.
incredible. Like I can't even. It's like being able to remix your songs, right? Like you can
Yeah.
have two songs playing at the same time.
Yep.
You know, cut out the mute the tracks on one of them. Now you're all on the second one. Load up a different track. You know, load in a different. You know, turn those on. Like fade into that. You know, like you can just do all sorts of fun shit. And like I am
Yeah.
absolutely fired up about it. So it'll probably mean my stuff is even more consistent when it comes to like track, you know, MIDI channel conventions and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but we'll see.
Yep.
I think it should
Yep.
be all right.
Yeah. Best of luck with that, and I really look forward to when you get that hotbox thing, so we can.
I think it arrives this week, this coming week. But if it's not already
Yeah.
at the post office, I don't know. But
But you probably won't be looking that much into it before you
I'm not even going to
have to
open
get
it.
big. Makes sense. Makes sense.
If it arrived like on Friday, like some folks got it on Friday, it would be me doing very questionable move and being like, "Can I reprogram all my stuff into this before Friday?"
Yeah.
Is
That, I mean, for me, it would require quite a bit of self control just to leave it in the box. But
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
trick. Don't even like
yeah,
unpack, like look at the label on the box and like pull out the thing to make sure there's not like a big
yeah.
dented corner or something, but just like
Put it
throw it in a
somewhere in the
corner.
basement where you don't see it
Yeah,
every day. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Because all my waking moments are going to be like practicing or traveling.
I
Like
have never had enough self control to do something like that. I mean,
I've done it a few times. I did it. I've done it a few times. I can't say it's the easiest or most fun, but like sometimes, like right now, like I'm effectively doing that with all my Eurorack stuff, right? Like I just got a huge amount of stuff, um, and now like I'm not touching it. Like I can't touch it. Um, and the story that's behind that particular the WMD order is. I was hoping I was keeping an eye out for like B stock or discounted stuff, and
yeah,
Alex was like, "Hey, I've got B stock this, and so just happened to work out." But
that's good. That's
I
good.
wasn't exactly looking
Yeah.
to buy it this month, but it happened, so it's fine.
When I was like 9 or 10 or something, and knew I would get a Game Boy for Christmas, I, it arrived in two packages, right? One with the Game Boy and one with the game. And I was completely impossible the whole day. So my parents let me pack up one of them, and I packed up the Game Boy without a game, and I sat the whole day just turning it on and off again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I had to do with the. Actually, I got it ready to show, but like the Soft Pop 2 came during work,
Right.
right? Like I was like Christmas excited about this thing, and I still am. Like it's it's sat on my kitchen table next to a USB battery and a speaker, because like in the morning when I have breakfast, I'm like playing with the Soft Pop. Can't wait. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. I'm gonna run, make some lunch. Everybody
All
have a
right.
good week. Actually, quick note: the what the heck time is going to be 10 a.m. Mountain Standard or Mountain Daylight. I don't remember. 10 a.m. for me going forward, which if you look at the calendar invite will tell you what time it needs to be up, but it'll be an hour before it was today. So
Yeah,
next
and
week
that's
will
gonna
be,
be fine for me once we've had our DST shift, which is in
yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be like 2 weeks of weirdness, but then I
Yeah.
think things line up again for a lot of folks. So, um,
That's fine.
how are the soft pops for Europe delayed? Um, I'm sorry, they're amazing. Anyway, later, y'all. Hey, woke. All right. Do you want to play us out? Actually,
Sure, sure, sure. I'm gonna grab the camera and do really shitty handheld camera as well. Let me just bad stuff off here.
Heck yeah. I'm gonna make you big and my screen real small.